Hello guys, welcome back to the radio show, coming in live from the best CUNY school, that is John Jay College. My name is Michaela, and today we have with us...
Hi guys, my name is Chelsea.
And I'm Alyssa.
So today we're going to be doing a bit of a controversial topic, and we're going to be discussing the death penalty.
Okay, so how this all started was I have a Law 301 class, so we've been debating about the death penalty for about a week and a half now. And basically the whole class is like the philosophy of the law. And there's a lot of ethical theories saying that the death penalty is moral and immoral. And for me personally, I'm for the death penalty, but for a certain extent. And I just wanted to know, how do you guys feel about the death penalty? Are you for it, against it? Is it moral, immoral?
Well, I would have to say I'm totally against the death penalty.
Okay.
And it's not about, I think it's, in a sense, a moral situation, but I feel like I'm against the death penalty just because I think it's an easy way out of your punishment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you go to jail for, I don't know, homicide,
Yeah.
you kill a lot of people, and then, you get to, die, get the easy way out. And I feel like life in prison is way worse than a death penalty. Like, just to be locked up 24/7, nasty meals, with, the harsh people in jail, because, there'd be, a lot of jail fights with it, too.
See, but that's, a really iffy thing, because you hear all the time about a lot of people wanting to go back to prison because they get, health coverage and stuff like that. So they prefer being in prison to being homeless.
For me, I feel like the death penalty only, should really apply to cases where, the person who committed mass murder.
Yeah, serial cases, serial rape, serial murder.
And if you're doing a lot of damage to society, you shouldn't be alive anymore. That's how I see it. If you're causing so much destruction where, people are mourning and, say, for instance, the Sandy Hook school shooting, that was probably the saddest shootings in our country.
Yeah.
And, he took the easy way out and committed suicide. For me, if he was, convicted, he should have got the death penalty.
And plus, I think, most people think of, like you said, that death penalty is the easy way out. But sometimes it's in situations where they don't want to die. So you're taking away their sort of right to live, in a sense, where I feel that's stricter than life in prison. And, when people have multiple life sentences, I feel like you should just put them on death penalty at that point, because no one can actually live out a multiple life sentence, and a multiple life sentence will technically never be complete because they don't pass on the sentence to the next generation, which would be highly immoral.
Well, that's the thing about the death penalty, is that once you are sentenced to death, you don't die automatically. You'll be put on death row. You'll be on death row for so long. You'll probably die from just being on death row. You won't even receive, the injection, the lethal injection or anything. But
according to statistics, as of April 1st, 2019, there are 2,673 people on death row.
Yeah.
And in 2018, only 25 people were executed.
Exactly.
So it's they're still getting a sentence. It's just that they are eventually coming to an end. And I feel like, especially for mass murders or mass rapists, they shouldn't be allowed to live. If a child is bit by a dog, even if the child is still alive, they put the dog down. Why shouldn't we do the same with people who are causing tremendous harm to society?
But it's who are we to decide who lives or not?
And that's another topic that we could talk about, but I just know that for me personally, God forbid I was, brutally murdered and, taken out execution style.
God forbid.
I know my dad, he's not the most religious person, but he is, believes in God and we're Christians. But he wouldn't want the death penalty for that person, but I am for it. Even though I'm only one person and that, my death didn't do destruction of society, I wouldn't put that person to death. But if I was one of his victims where, it was out of 1 out of 30, then I think he should be,
and
taken out.
That's, another thing is that dead people can't really talk for themselves.
Exactly.
So you never know, like, what type of person they were. They could have believed in an eye for an eye.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and sometimes, like, there's been paranormal studies saying that people who have been killed in mass murders, their spirit tends to stay at unrest until their murderer dies. So it's like, we can't really know for sure if that is true or not, but you never know what the person would have wanted, and they can't speak for themselves anymore.
I do feel like, you have to know your victim. Obviously, if you're related to the victim or know the victim, you have to know what their morals are, so the best outcome. But it's not that easy, and
and this might seem like an extremist view as well, but I fully believe pedophiles should be put down too, because doing that to a little kid, not only do they cause irreversible damage, like, if they do it to a girl, that girl there's a high chance she'll never be able to have sex again.
Like trauma.
Traumatized.
Not even trauma, like, physically. Like,
I know.
physically, her, if it's anal sex, her rectum can actually fall out of her, or, like, her body will be too damaged to ever have sex again, or she'll never be able to have children, like. And if we're talking about on a boy, especially because of society standards on, like, what men should be, and, like, it's really damaging, especially, like, as much as we talk about how damaging rape is to girls, there's more of a stigma on guys that make it a little bit more emotionally damaging to them. Mm-hmm. So especially when they're young, like, and especially if it's an older male figure they look up to that's doing it to them, they have this feeling like they can't tell because they looked up to that person. Whereas for girls, they'll start having conversations young about how guys shouldn't touch you in certain places. They don't have that conversation with boys. They're like, oh, once you get to a certain age, you can do anything you want pretty much for boys. But for girls, it's like, oh, make sure you don't keep a guy's eyes on you too long. Make sure you're not showing too much. And, like, that's why I feel like, especially, like, pedophiles should be put to the death penalty.
I mean, it's understandable. I guess it's about what you believe in retrospect, because for some people, they believe, death penalty is, like, the worst punishment you can receive. Like, if you did something really horrible or traumatic, like raping, young girls and stuff like that, they should be put to death because you feel like that's the worst punishment. For me, why I'm against the death penalty, because I just think it's not harsh enough punishment. Mm-hmm. Like, I said, I felt like it's the easy way out. Like, you die, that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, if they, like, do something really horrible and nasty, I want them to, like, suffer for a long time. And even though you say, like, you'll be on death row forever, and I guess they're awaiting death, I just want them to be, like, in jail forever until they die.
Yeah, I could see that, because
it's like the same thing when you think about it.
And, like, they get this sense of accepting death as well, so they can come to terms with it. But I feel like one thing we have to acknowledge is America's racist history with the death penalty, because everyone knows that the first version of the death penalty was hanging. Mm-hmm. And that was geared towards African Americans who misbehaved, quote-unquote misbehaved. I'm quoting my fingers, so. I had to do that because it's a common thing. Like, we'll quote our fingers, but we're on the radio. But it was geared to African Americans. And then once the official death penalty was made, it was still, the African Americans were given harsher, accused of harsher crimes compared to a white person would be given, just so that they would be given the death penalty. And I feel like that's an unfair practice of it, because I feel like death penalty should fit the crime.
Yes.
That's why for, like, mass serial killers, mass rapists, and, like, pedophiles, I feel like they should be the one getting the death penalty.
Throw a snap. And that's, in my class for Law 301, we talked about, like, ethical theories, and certain ethical theories think that the death penalty is moral because you have the right to live your life however you choose to. And if you choose to take someone's life, you're forfeiting your own right to live. So that's why in their eyes it is moral. And if you think about it, like, if somebody got murdered, your loved one got murdered or raped or whatever, and whoever did it is still living and breathing and just looking at a 4x1 cell, I feel like that's not justice. For me,
it also depends because certain times. Okay, I'm gonna bring up one specific case. Brock, whatever his name is, the one who was on the swim team in his college.
Yeah.
There was evidence he raped the girl. Mm-hmm. She was left behind a dumpster, naked, and they put him in. He was supposed to get I think it was around 10 years. Mm-hmm. He was let off early for good behavior. How is that a punishment?
Exactly.
And literally the judge was quoted saying he didn't want to ruin his swimming career.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, in jail, you're still getting medical treatment, you're still getting fed, you're still, having time to breathe and live. But the person that you murdered is in a box, in a grave, and they don't get to live their life the way they want it to.
And I'm going to bring our president into this. With as many sexual assaults as have been brought up, people are still saying, women are saying that just to get attention. And this article was brought up, and I thought it was a really good point. If they think the women are doing it just for attention, how many of those women's names can you actually say? None, exactly. They're not doing it to put their name out there. They're doing it because he's morally corrupt, and they do not think he should be in a position of power. And they found that one person who sparked it all, and the rest are rising up to speak as well. Because that's what tends to happen, is that women are scared to speak against someone who has high power. And Donald Trump, even before he was president, he had high power. Nobody can dispute that. He had high power. So a lot of females were scared to speak up about that because of how much influence and how much power he had. So when he started running for election, that first female who was like, no, I can't do this, I have to speak up, she caused the uprising of the rest of them to speak up because they did not want him as president. And even think of some of the policies Trump has put in place.
Let's not even call him Trump. I'm gonna call him Cheeto Puff. That's my name. You will never hear Trump come out my mouth. I will say Cheeto Puff, and y'all should know who I'm talking about.
Because he's tried banning Planned Parenthood and doing so many things that help rape victims, especially because Planned Parenthood has free STD testing, it has the pregnancy, and it's a last case place for abortions. You have to go through a process to get an abortion. It's not I want an abortion, okay, and they take you right in. It's not what happens.
It's really not. And we'll talk about abortion.
That's another topic.
But good Lord.
We're dealing with how corrupt people are, especially with power, and how this is why I feel like certain crimes should get the death penalty. And I feel like politicians, if they are actually convicted, I feel they get off so easy for crimes. And they're usually the ones that commit some of the most heinous acts. I'm not excusing mass murders or things like that, but politicians abuse their political power to get their way. And with mass murderers, it's not like they're abusing any of their own power. They're finding a way around the system that allows that things to happen. Politicians are using the system to commit crimes.
To play devil's advocate really quickly, why the death penalty is actually, not some disadvantages to it is that our, criminal justice system isn't 100% sure about everything. We have missing evidence. We don't have enough evidence. We have corrupt police officers. So if an innocent person is sentenced to death, you're taking a life from somebody else who doesn't even deserve to be on death row or the death penalty. Yeah, wrongfully accused. And we'll definitely, that's another topic that we could talk about. But, to have somebody who didn't even commit the crime on death row and they can't, appeal the case and they're just waiting to die, that's also another disadvantage.
But I feel like that could go for crimes in all, because especially with how flawed our criminal justice system is, you literally have police body cam footage of police planting marijuana or
oh my God,
crack.
there was an article about. It was an article. I don't know what it was, but some police officer with the body cam.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is so funny. So body cams basically record like maybe a few minutes before you press it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that he planted the evidence or whatever, and then he pressed the body cam, not knowing that it was already recording him beforehand. So it's like stuff like that is why.
I'm trying to be sneaky, but he got caught.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can't. It's technology. You can't. You
Yeah.
can't. You could try to do it, but no, you're not gonna get away with it.
And I feel like this ties in because I feel like people who abuse the power should, especially if they're doing something to incriminate others, they shouldn't be allowed to live because they're trying, and especially they gear it towards African American communities. That's who they're mostly doing it to, like
or minorities.
Yeah,
they are
minorities
in general. They're purposely trying to get these people in prison and take away their rights, like. You should not be allowed to live if you want to strip other people of their power by using your own power.
Especially several people, and that's why, going back to why I'm for it. I'm only for it for the people who are causing so much damage to society. So if you committed a murder, you killed one person. You don't deserve the death penalty for killing one person. But if you're killing 30, 40, 50... You didn't wake up this morning and was like, I'm bored. Let me just take my rifle and hide it under this big-ass winter coat and walk into a school and be like, let me shoot up some kids. Like, that, I'm sorry, you have to go. Because living in a cell and staring out the wall, still breathing and eating, that's not going to go with it.
And I was talking about this. I have criminal justice statistics thing as I'm a CJBA major. So it's bad enough a lot of cases are unreported. They literally have a figure called the dark side of crime, which is all the cases that are unreported. There's a bunch of cases that go unreported as is. We do not need, especially police officers, creating fake cases and skewering what is already failable data.
Mm-hmm. But then that's going back to the death penalty. It's also sometimes it does give closure to the victim's friends and family, but then again, you have to think about, playing devil's advocate again, you have to think about the defendants or the criminal's family, how they would feel if their loved one was sentenced to death. And, if I had a child and somebody killed my child, I would either want to, get him arrested, convicted, and put to death, maybe, depending on how, they kill my child. But then you think about it, what if my child was the murderer? So then you don't want to sentence them to death as well. But that's like, controversial. So,
like, God forbid, like, I hope my child never grows up to this, but if my child grows up to be a mass murderer, I wouldn't even know what to do with myself.
Exactly.
Like, this may sound really rude and messed up, but I would kind of hope my child would get the death penalty because I would feel so ashamed of how I raised my child, and I would feel partially responsible to all the families whose my child have affected. Like, I would not be able to look at my child the same anymore. Like, as rude as that may sound, if I found out my child even murdered one person, and it was actually them who did it, I would not be able to look at my child the same.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that we were talking about during my class, was that if a lot of people whose family members or loved ones is the murderer, they sometimes are for the death penalty because they don't want to be associated with that person, and you don't want to have, people looking at you like, oh, well, she raised a murderer. Her child killed 85 people last week, and she's still living. And wonder what job she must have did to raise him. And, we have to think about it like, the death penalty is controversial, which is why we're talking about it. But at the end of the day, it all depends on how the victim felt and what the victim would have done, or their morals in a way.
Yeah, and it's so hard to deal with that kind of thing because, especially for rape and aggravated rape, it's so hard to get people to speak up about that kind of thing. And it's just like, crime as it is very hard to calculate because there's so much unknown. And especially wanting to go about the victims, more crimes are more likely to be reported. Like, okay, let me rephrase that. Certain types of crimes are more likely to be reported, like property crimes, because they have that value to it. But more cases like assaults or rape or like murder, when they start having a relationship between the person who did it, it makes it so hard for you to want to admit that as well. Because it almost seems like you allowed it to happen because you knew that person. So we already have missing data we're dealing with the United States alone for crime.
In my class, we watched a documentary called No Tomorrows. And basically this man murdered a young adult who was in the foster care system. And she got aged out. But she, even though she had all these bad circumstances in her life, she still made it to college. She still did all these other things. And because it was a documentary about her life, they used that documentary during trial to, have the jury see her as a human. And because the jury saw her as a human, they were willing to sentence the guy to death. Because it was premeditated murder in the documentary. They talked about how he planned on doing it. He even laughed about to his jail inmate. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm on a death penalty sentence. They about to kill me. I got all these murders in." But then my perspective was it was premeditated, and he had 2 murders before he killed that girl. So for me, he did deserve the death penalty. But the way they went about it by showing the documentary of her was a little biased, I would say. And I feel like in order to come up with that sentence to sentence somebody to death, I feel like it should be based on the facts and not the emotion of how you feel. So it shouldn't be biased at all.
I mean, it shouldn't be. But...
See, but that brings up a different topic because then we could go into jury bias.
Yeah.
Because a lot of points of cases, jury to see the victim as a human, and some lawyers will have the victim like cry on stand, like they will advise them cry on stand, like appeal to the jury. But we can have a topic on that. That's a total separate one.
And what the prosecutor did was take part of the documentary of the girl, and they played like her in her prom dress and getting ready to go to prom, and they put the defendant's words saying, "Oh, I got mad bodies. So it's basically like tampering evidence and forcing the jury to say, "Oh yeah, he needs to be sentenced to death." So that was kind of, illegal about how he went about it. And my teacher was actually like, he's still on death row to this day. So it was like, I think it was back in 2009. Don't quote me on that because I don't really remember. But my teacher was saying that he should, if he wanted to get the case turned over, he could just by the prosecutor doing that. So if you do...
Was it the prosecutor sampled or the defense?
The prosecutor. Because the prosecutor wanted the jury to say, to get him on death row and to be sentenced to death. So he basically like edited the documentary. Okay. So he took the documentary and added what the defendant's words were saying. And so that's how he went about it. So for me, I feel like you should go about it the right way and not just try to force it. Because at the end of the day, the jury is deciding.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But I still just think that we're, like, seeing prison as, like, I feel like prison is just way harsher than what we're making it out to be. Like, yeah, they eat in prison, and, they have...
Oh, yeah, prison is definitely, like,
shelter or whatever.
It depends on, like, their perspectives, because you hear how some people say, oh, they went to prison and it was, like, the best thing for them. Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many... It's, like, all perspective. So we're talking from an outside looking in perspective. Mm-hmm. So we can see, like, both the pros and the cons of it. Because anyone can, like, break down the prisons and say what's good and what's bad about it.
Yeah.
Because, like, personally, like, I think solitary confinement should be taken out.
Yeah, like there's some inhumane parts of prison, especially in the United States. Like if we look at, like European prisons, it's like the way they treat their prisoners like human beings.
I think it's in Sweden or Switzerland. It's one of them.
Oh,
I always mix them up. Yeah, like they have a low recidivism rate because their prisons are meant to reform them and not punish them.
Mm-hmm. But that's going like to another topic. Does rehabilitation actually work?
I feel like it works for other places, but it doesn't work. It wouldn't work in America unless the entire as much as we're shitting on America, we have to be factual. Like America's criminal justice system is fucked up. Like there's no other way to say it.
It really is. And I actually did a research project about this, and I compare like the United States prison system to like Europe, and the reasons why that Europe per se has so much low recidivism rates is because like they are actively engaged in providing these like programs for the prisoners to help rehabilitate them, to make them feel like human beings. Like in Europe they do like performing arts activities in prison. They teach them music classes and acting classes. And in America, they just locked up to rot, basically.
Yeah. And, like, another thing is, I'm not sure if other countries do this, but I know America does this, is that depending on what crime you commit, you're punished even after you get out of prison. Because there's felon disenfranchisement, which is, and I feel very unethical.
I feel like I watched a lot of, like, documentaries about the prison system, and I feel like they're forcing you to fail in life. So after you leave, you still have all these requirements that you have to do once you get released.
Oh, yeah.
That is going to literally push you back to go to prison and commit another crime.
I'm very, like, connected to this because I'm part of the criminal justice major, and we talk about this a lot. So it's basically setting you up to fail, especially when you have a multi-year sentence. Because for one, say, for instance, if you're a guy, not a lot of women are gonna wait years for someone to get out of prison. Like,
talking about relationships?
Like we're talking about relationships. Like a lot of people who go to jail, they come out and find their wives with someone else or their girlfriends with someone else, and their child. They have missed years of their children's lives. Like they are lost out on that familial bond. Their options for jobs are very, 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 very limited.
Just because they have a record.
They have no housing. They have no house to go to.
No money.
Chances are their car was probably taken away if they did have a car because nobody was paying those bills. And depending on like what type of place you're living at, it could have gotten towed because it was on the wrong side of the street for too long.
And also, like, it depends on what age you, like, started in the prison system. So if you started in the prison system at, like, maybe 19, and you get out...
Or we can even go younger. If you start... There's some who are in 16
and
who serve, like, 25, 30-year sentences.
And they get out when they're 45, and they don't know anything but prison. They don't know how to act when they get back outside.
And I think those are, like, the people who say, wish I was back in prison.
And then if you take into people who have like longer sentences, like say for instance you go in when you're 20 and have like 40, 50-year sentence, like by the time you're out, everything is different. Like they're using new technology. Your home area will be totally different.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like the prison system, America's prison system seriously needs changes.
And we could talk about that whole thing another time, but like, yeah, I just feel like honestly, going back to the main topic of discussion, it just depends on what the crime is, who the victim was, and how society was affected by it. So
and I feel in a sense who the defendant was.
Yeah. Because
I'm still going to stick by, I feel like if it's like a politician or something like that who is abusing their power, they should not be allowed to.
Oh, yeah, there's no like, God forbid Cheeto Puff. Shot up his whole staff. And just, he's the president. He didn't mean to do it. He didn't know what the trigger was. Like, they'd be like, he was such a good... No, he really wasn't. And just because he was the president doesn't mean that you don't get to... be a real person. You're still an individual where you have you have the laws, you have to follow it. So, therefore, you should be sentenced to death.
On a quick side note, this is like kind of out there, but I saw this article. It's not an article. I have this YouTuber who like stays up to date on like super political things that are happening, and supposedly people are actually leaning towards a Trump impeachment.
That's what
That's been happening for years.
I was gonna say,
just change the topic. We all know he has 1 more year.
Yeah,
there's no way he's getting
not
impeached.
even. It's just like
he's not getting impeached. So you could put it in.
Like,
you could put it
there. Like,
you could put it in play if he's not getting impeached.
I don't think so.
like there's no point in impeaching him at this point.
Really, he has 1 more year.
His term is almost over anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And God forbid he gets reelected.
I was gonna say, let's hope he doesn't. I don't think so.
And
But then again, I didn't think he was gonna be president
in the first place.
When I woke up the next day, I was like, "Huh?" I want to cry.
I was watching it.
I thought I was dreaming.
When did he get elected?
2017, 2016.
Yeah, 16. So I was 17 and I was a senior in high school.
Yeah.
And I just woke up. I didn't even want to go to school that day. I really just wanted to stay home. I don't want to face anybody. I felt like the whole world just shattered at that point.
No, but it's sad actually knowing people in your family who celebrated when Trump got. I
have some people like that. I'm just like, okay.
What's the word? I want to say coronation, but it's not coronation.
Wait, what do you?
His inauguration. Yeah.
She said coronation.
Queen princess.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, but I don't know.
I hope by the end of his term, maybe those charges against him can be further, pursued. Hopefully, I don't know. It's like, unlikely, but
there's so many things about Trump that need to be pursued. Because, from how he ran his businesses to the whole Russia thing,
to the whole tax invasion,
everything about Trump.
And people, okay, if you're a Republican, I don't hate you.
No,
I don't. I'm not gonna be like, I have friends who are Republicans. I don't hate them. I'm still friends
right
with them.
here. I'm a Republican, but I'm not a conservative Republican.
Yeah, I don't hate you. Your values are different from mine. Yeah. That doesn't mean I don't have to talk to you. But at the end of the day, there are some people who, because since he was in office,
have become more hateful.
And are okay with it. And Trump, Cheeto Puff, doesn't see it. He's like, I'm not racist. I don't do anything. But then you have people who are going to Trump rallies with the Confederate flag and they're, in white capes with the circles. And
see, I'm iffy about the Confederate flag thing because, the actual history of the Confederate flag and, what it symbolizes, so mixed up. So I'm okay with the Confederate flag, but once they start wearing KKK apparel is when I get pissed off.
When you start screaming the N-word to black people and you're like, well, I'm a Trump supporter. Oh, God forbid you call him a fucking Trump supporter. Because I'm not a Trump supporter, but you're prejudiced. But you're racist. But, you don't have to be a Trump supporter and be prejudiced or racist, but I'm just saying, all these acts
that a majority of
past
Trump
4 years since he was in office, you just had this urge to get all your feelings out at once. Come on now.
Yeah, and we can even quote Donald Trump on some of the things he's said.
Yes, we can.
That prove that he is racist and prejudiced and biased to the utmost degree.
And it's sad because ain't his wife?
Yeah,
I saw
Melania is an immigrant.
You want to build a wall, but your wife's family is about
I saw a meme that said if Trump bans immigrants from coming into the U.S.,
how's he gonna get his next wife?
Yeah, he's
okay, so I know we did a sidebar to Trump, but this is really important. Because the wall won't do nothing.
The wall not even get built. Let's be honest.
Have you ever seen those memes around it where he was like, "Oh, he's building a wall across the Mexican border," and they had arrows just going around the wall. Going
but if you really think about it,
I hate to be that one person, but threw an arrow around the wall.
If you really think about it, most quote unquote illegal immigrants come here legally.
Exactly.
And overstay their visa.
It's a job that Americans don't want to do.
Yeah.
But
so
kick them out.
Shout out.
This is a whole other topic that we could talk about.
Shout out to Esmeralda Santiago, because in her book, When I Was Puerto Rican, she has this
I gotta read
moment.
that book. Oh my
She
God.
has this moment where she's speaking with her mother, and she's talking about how, like, all the white people are talking about them, and the mother goes, oh, they say we're stealing their jobs, but they're too proud to get down on their knees and do other jobs, so that's why Puerto Ricans are doing them. Like, you can't say Puerto Ricans and Mexicans and minorities are stealing your jobs when you don't want... How many natural-born Americans actually want to be plumbers or cleaners or things like that? Like, who's a little kid?
I'll wait. None? Okay, that's
who's a little kid and goes up saying, I want to clean houses for a living? Like, nobody.
Let them live.
Nobody says like
they
that.
paying their taxes. Leave them alone.
And that's another thing. Let's take this major point of saying illegal immigrants are living on government subsidization. It's just like that. Like, you need a social security number to get government assistance, so...
I'm just saying. At the end of the day, don't try to build a wall when your wife's sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
Can't speak English.
I'm just
I'm
like,
saying.
I wonder what his wife was like saying about it. Like,
I know,
like,
we all know she don't want to.
And correct me if I'm
you
wrong.
see, like, the faces that she
Y'all
makes
don't
me
see.
hear.
Oh my
Correct
God.
me if I'm wrong, but weren't all three of
Yes.
Trump's wives immigrants?
I don't understand like
Yes.
how this conversation just goes like with Trump talking about immigrants this, immigrants that, and all of his immigrant wives are just like sitting next to him.
And it's
like,
not even that. He wants to build a wall to keep criminals out, which is I mean,
all the criminals are already here.
thank you. All the criminals are in America. So what is building a wall gonna do?
Exactly.
Keep them in. So I really don't understand how you can try to. And then he tried to get the Mexicans to fucking
build the
it.
wall.
And
Yeah,
I'm like,
and pay for it.
and pay for it. It was like, you're not my president. I'm on the other side of the border, bitch. So, what are you talking about? I just, oh
Like,
my God.
Trump is just a bleh. Like, he is a stain.
I don't
Like, I feel like he's the worst president ever.
Oh, yes, and there's been several bad presidents.
There's been
but
several
he is
presidents who actually own slaves.
Yeah, and they still. I mean,
She's like, wait.
Abraham Lincoln did own slaves, but he also did some good things.
Yeah.
So I don't hate him, but I don't love him.
But, like, even the ones who own slaves had some
Yeah,
good
George
policies
Washington.
implemented. What actual good has Trump done?
Thank you.
I mean, he was president for 4 years, and it's nothing to show.
He was president for
Exactly.
4 years,
And
and,
it's
he's attacked women, minorities, LGBTQ people, like, and America has been on, I will say this, and I truly believe this is going to happen. America's on the cusp of a civil war. You cannot convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
War is going to break out between Americans pretty soon.
was going to happen once he got elected.
That's
Yeah,
what people
I
were
was
joking
like-
about. They were like, oh, World War III?
Because, he got, his button is on that damn button. His fingers are hovering that button.
That whole thing with...
Because it's like this.
No, we know he's all
Twitter
buddy-buddy.
fingers.
He's all buddy-buddy with Russia because he does whatever Putin tells him to.
He's...
Of course he is!
He is. Every time Putin, he's like, oh. Like,
Yeah.
I can't.
If Putin says jump, Trump will say how high.
Exactly. And I can't.
And then he was kissing up to Kim Jong Un
Yep.
too.
Yo.
That's the reason why World War III didn't happen.
Thank God.
Because he was kissing up to Putin and Kim Jong Un. You can't convince me otherwise.
If you listen,
And
you actually listen to when people ask him questions. Like I watch CNN with my parents, and we actually sit down and listen to him answer questions. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Plus, look at it
He
this way.
really
Remember,
doesn't.
have you ever seen him on the news and he was trying to talk about the hurricane? And he
Oh.
He drew the extra line like he was a meteorologist or some shit. Oh my
Guys,
God,
there's one point you also have to look at. Both the people we just named that Trump kisses up to are dictators.
Yeah.
Who have been on record acclaimed as the worst dictators for their nations individually.
Putin has killed people,
How
and that's exactly why
have you
Trump's kissing his ass. 'Cause
Putin
he
has
wanna
killed
be the next person
people.
on his
and North Korea is poor as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like for
I
as much
know.
beauty and shit Korea has, it is poor as fuck. I saw this video of this dude. I forget his name, but he's always doing, I did these challenges for a day where he like married an Indian woman and stuff like that. So he did this one where he went into North Korea, illegally filmed there,
Of course, yeah.
and showed like how there's practically no cars in North Korea driving around, how like the people were all sad and desolate, and how like
I feel like they're also brainwashed, you know?
yeah,
Because
like they can't leave. They can't leave either.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they want to go on vacation, they have the struggle doing that. If they want to leave, I've heard articles saying that if someone wants to leave North Korea, they're killed.
I heard of that too.
Like
They have to, like, literally.
if these are the people,
leave, no
if
state.
these are the people our president is looking up to and trying to emulate,
Exactly.
what does that say for what he's trying to do for
and
America?
a lot of people who like voted for Trump are now seeing why they made a mistake.
Not,
I mean, you didn't see that
it's not as many
Exactly.
people. It's not as many people as you would like, though.
It's not, but people like his own like team dropped out. Like they
So many of
quit.
his freaking cabinet members
Exactly.
were either
Left.
fired or let go.
And it just goes to show you, like, I'm not saying that Obama was the best president, but to me he was. But
Like every president has
his cabinet leave.
yeah. Like of course we can say some bad things about Obama because there have been
no
some
politician, no
Yeah, no
president is
politician is
100% perfect.
But
I love Obama, but
Obama
people
is
perfect.
one of the best.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the best.
But
Trump is at the
he
very
has
bottom of
he
it.
has no track record of
One
doing
of the worst.
anything good for this country.
He literally only cares about the 1% of America.
1% that has money.
And he
which
is
him.
attacking the rest of America. And if he becomes president again, God forbid, God forbid, America is screwed, especially minorities, especially women, and especially LGBTQ people.
Just
like
having another 4 years of this, I can't.
I feel like if we do have, we're already heading towards a recession now.
Yeah, facts. And I just feel bad for like the young people who are like in kindergarten and stuff. Like they have to grow up with this, and that's exactly what I'm thankful because I'm 20 that I don't have a child while he's in office.
And
but
I saw this, and I feel like it's so sad. But for those of you who know Harry Potter, one of the main things
the whole topic.
No, it's next. One of the things is that the government isn't listening to the children, and mainly Harry, when he's saying that Voldemort's back.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what's happening now. The government is not listening to its people, and the children are rising up.
Children are the future.
Yeah. Look how many kids were protesting when we had the climate change on September 20th.
I was really proud about that.
I couldn't go. I wanted to go, but I had to work that day. But there were so many people there, like, oh my God. And our government, and Trump especially, is saying climate change is real.
I'm just happy that
it's honestly, like, understandable why he's saying it's not real because he really doesn't know anything. Especially when he was talking about the hurricane.
Trump knows nothing at all.
People write his shit, and he still don't know what it means. Like, that's the saddest part, that you're not even writing your fucking speeches, and you still don't understand what you're saying. But whatever.
Trump probably can't even spell his name on his own.
Me, Cheeto Puff? But no, I'm actually proud of our generation because they are learning, they're teaching themselves, and they're going about it and standing up. Because I feel like, I won't say old generation because, like, what's the word? Seniority. That word. I feel like older people just go off their values and beliefs on how they grew up. But I feel like our generation is actually taking the time to read about it.
Yeah, because like even though our generation were taught some of those values that, like, say our parents or our grandparents, we're breaking down those values. Because like I know I, for one, I was taught to, like, always respect your elders. I now have the mentality that if you haven't done anything to earn my respect, I'm not giving it to you. And I feel like that's what a lot of our generation feels, especially towards the ones who want to be like, oh, the younger generation needs to do this, and stop complaining about this. But they're the ones that ruined everything for us. So, I know we did a major sidebar, started talking about politicians.
But, just going back to the death penalty, just to wrap it up, because we are going to close soon. But at the end of the day, it's, your decision. This is just our
your
beliefs.
perspective.
Yeah.
Not really your decision, but...
Right. You don't have control of that. But, I feel like, for me, it's moral to a certain extent. Because there are some bad things that come out of the death penalty that don't really meet up to society's standards. But I'm being repetitive. But if you're causing major destruction to society, I feel like you should just be let go. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
So, thank you guys once again for joining in. And remember, every Wednesday you guys can tune in. And if you missed the live show, check the link in our bio on JGC Radio.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a safe day.